Welcome to the Men's Health Unscripted podcast with Patrick and Cam.
Where we focus on your entire health, mental, physical, spiritual, and emotional to make sure you are good to go every day.
Welcome to the Men's Health Unscripted podcast with Patrick. I'm here with attorney Bryant Scriven, and we're going to talk about meditation today. Now, you guys might be thinking, well, what does an attorney know about meditation? But he's actually a real guy that has a real meditation practice. And we just want to talk about how it has impacted his life and work life, and maybe some benefits, and maybe clearing up any misconceptions about meditation from a professional. And we always think that people with real jobs and real lives, like this is what the podcast is for, not for like the Jason Momoa GQ. Not that Brian's not handsome, but I think the GQ magazine and things like that, Men's Health magazine, don't necessarily always give a realistic perspective because celebrities can afford to spend 6 hours in a gym and do all those things where the average working man doesn't. So, Bryant, thanks for coming on the show. I really appreciate you having on the podcast.
Thank you. Thank you, Patrick, for having me.
And ready to talk about a little bit about meditation. So
Okay.
We'll just kick it off with what kind of provoked you to start a meditation practice?
Well, I'll tell you that it's something that I'd always thought about doing. Really, what kicked it into high gear for me was during COVID. I've dealt with anxiety and ADHD for most of my life, and I was sort of looking for ways to deal with it naturally. I've been on medication, SSRIs, to deal with the anxiety, and so it's sort of one of those things that I'd always had in the back of my mind that that I needed to do along with other things to really to really balance me out. And so it was during COVID that I really decided to really give it a try. Obviously I was at home and like everybody else, and so I had more of an opportunity to really seriously try it.
So I guess at that point, were there any tools or any instructions, or did you go? Well, I guess you couldn't go somewhere, but did you find resources online or somewhere in a book where you could start a meditation practice? And if so, what did you use?
Yeah, well, so and I'll tell you that I tried I think like most people, I mean, I went on YouTube and did internet searches and for different exercises or to help me kind of get started. So I went through several before I actually found one that that really worked for me. Yeah, I don't know if you want me to mention what it is. I mean, there's a particular app.
Yeah, you
But
can. I mean, we're trying to provide resources and help, so
okay,
you're
okay,
free to
yeah.
mention
So
anything.
there's an app called Core, Core, that I use, and I bought it with they call it a meditation trainer device. It's like a little ball that it vibrates. It provides music and lighting, so that it really helps kind of get at least me get to that point where I'm really focused. So I really found that that's helped me a great deal. Now I don't necessarily need the device to to really get to that point of focus, but it really helped in the beginning to help me concentrate because it's hard. I mean, it's hard.
It's tough too when you go to sit down to meditate, and this is kind of my own personal experience, but I've heard other meditators discuss it, is like you'll sit down and you'll get to this place where you're calm and thoughts have kind of gone to a minimum, and then all of a sudden you get the rocket where it's like boom, 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 and everything that probably shouldn't even be in your brain decides. Like you get
Yes.
the weird eighth grade trauma, like I fell down the stairs in eighth grade. Like, why am I thinking about this now? I'm an adult. No one remembers that. And I think that's kind of something that's the really difficult aspect of meditation is trying to quiet the residual things that start coming in that really aren't even relevant to your life anymore, or something. I find myself when I try to sit down in meditation that I get a lot of that, not so much the, oh crap, this is really pertinent right now, but I get the weird things like embarrassing moments of when I was a kid or something is what pops up.
That especially, and again, and I don't, and it's funny because I always thought that it was me and just my brain just being mean to me, but that always happens. And I grew up in church, so prayer is not that different from meditation in a lot of ways, and so
Right.
when I, so in a lot of ways I was used to that practice of just trying to focus and um and so absolutely I mean I would get the most intrusive, you know awful thoughts, while trying to do that. And that's something that's been my big challenge as well. I'll just tell you that. When I have that moment of peace, immediately, I'll think of something at work. I'll wonder, did I file this thing in time? I mean, did I return this call? And my brain, it's almost like my brain's working against me sometimes. But yeah, it's hard. It's hard.
Yeah, for sure. It's like it's somewhere in, I would say, in the area of that right before you fall asleep too,
Mm,
where I'll find myself drifting off to sleep and then I'm worried about, did I email that person? Kind of the same thing as you. Or
yep.
I always have these like reoccurring memories from middle school where like I fell down the stairs and everybody laughed at me. Like this is kind of gross, but like I remember being in the lunch line and like I just puked and I got made fun of for weeks. Just I did. And so it's kind of the weird things that don't really matter, but were
Yeah.
embarrassing at the in the moment, kind
Yeah.
of come back in that moment of peace and silence. And you're like, what? Like, why is this even in my brain right now? What a waste
Yeah.
of time. What a waste
Yeah.
of thought.
Yeah.
So, and I say that because I've heard it from other meditators and you kind of just agreed. And so it's what are some things that you've done to maybe you get to that point, you're feeling good, some odd thoughts start kind of circling through it, and the idea of meditation is quieting all that down. So, are
Absolutely.
there any techniques that you use to say, okay, you're here now, but I'm going to let you go and send that thought back where it came from?
And for me, I've realized that I've got to give myself a lot of grace when it comes to that. In the beginning, when those thoughts would come in my head, I mean, I would get mad at myself. I get frustrated, and usually it would hinder my progress. I mean, now when it happens, I allow myself I allow the thought, if you will, to run its course, right? It's almost kind of counterintuitive in a way, but instead of pushing back, I just kind of allow it to run through my head, and I think that telling myself that I'm here I can be here all night, and so I allow the thoughts to come in, and they do their thing, and I wait them out. And I found for me that works, right? I mean, they tend to come up less and less. And I think that when or how I deal with thoughts, really matters, right? So when I get one of those really intrusive, thoughts, if I allow it to upset me, then it usually, completely ruins, my experience. But if I allow it to run its course, then usually I'm able to refocus, and I tend to have fewer distractions. That's one of the things that I've found.
So how is this, I guess one of the bigger questions that we're working towards is how has a meditation practice impacted your professional life and your personal life? And you can start with either one or whichever maybe it's had more impact on to kind of clear up how maybe it can benefit each in its own way.
In some ways, it benefits them both in the same ways. I mean, I think the number one way for me is patience. As an attorney, you probably know, you've heard, it's a high stress job,
Stressful
and
gig.
and and people will find your last nerve and work that, so it's what I found is when I engage in meditation or immediately thereafter, I tend to have a lot more patience. And so that's helped me a great deal, professionally, because I talk to people all day, every day. And so I've found myself, more productive that way. I don't dread returning a call or answering an email or having a difficult conversation with someone. Uh, after I meditate. So, and from that perspective, it's helped. Also, with my personal life, I mean, I've got a wife and I've got a 13-year-old and a 12-year-old. So, uh, I've got, at that age, patience is absolutely necessary with the kids. I've found that it's helped me out a lot. With them, I've even tried to include them. I mean, particularly my kids, in my meditation as well, because I'm positive that it can work for them the same way that it works for me. So I've it's overall made me a much more calm and patient person. I mean, I think that's just one way, and I guess in the other way, I mean, it's helped me, I think, to focus on living just a healthier lifestyle. It's much easier, I think, to the mindfulness, if you will. I mean, the mindfulness that it requires. It spills over into other areas when it comes to how I eat and my exercise and and things like that. And so I think just forcing that, me to be mindful and focusing on myself, my presence, it's allowed me to, to develop better habits and overall, I think live a healthier life.
Sure. There's definitely a mind body connection there where the mind or the body are not independently more powerful than one another, but working together, you can really do some pretty awesome stuff. And kind of something that you said made me think, and here's my follow-up question is, would you say, like previously you discussed, you had kind of had a depression, anxiety, but also ADHD. And as an attorney, I know from secondhand experience, I guess, that you got a million things probably coming at you at one time, but at the end of the day, you might have to really be focusing on one aspect of your practice or a certain case. Do you feel like the meditation practice allows you to maintain that focus, even though a million things are happening and you can kind of multitask a little bit better, but still maintain focus on the really key pertinent issues?
Absolutely. No, I think you hit it. You hit it on the head. Exactly. A person who's I've taken different anti-anxiety, depression, medications. I find that in some ways, in a lot of ways, the effect that I get from meditating regularly. Okay, and I'm by no means do I do it every day. I mean, I try to, but when I'm regular, when I'm doing it on a regular basis, that it almost has the same effect as taking an SSRI. And I am able to focus on a task and block out the noise and intrusive thoughts that distract me. So yeah, no, I've absolutely noticed that.
What are some tips and tricks that you have for maintaining a consistent practice that you felt work for you?
So for me, it's about a schedule, right? So I, I meditate after I work out. So after I go to the gym, I've done better, with making the gym a part of my routine, right? So I've done that for a little bit longer. I've been going to the gym, 3 to 4 times a week. Probably the last 5 or 6 years or so. So I wanted to incorporate the meditation as a part of that. So 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 for me, after I work out, after I get home, take a shower, and and I do it. I meditate at that point. And so I've found that developing that, or at least connecting those two things, has helped me remain somewhat consistent.
So how long would you say, I guess this is probably the question, maybe anybody who has never had a meditation practice that might be looking for a meditation practice or is interested in starting is, what's the amount of time that it takes to really start seeing the effects? Could you tell at least a small effect, maybe after your first 1 to 3 sessions, 5 sessions? Or would you say that obviously it's going to take us some time to really fall in line and develop the routine, but would you say that you could feel the initial effects right away? Or when was the time, when maybe if there was a time that you meditated that you're like, damn, that worked, that really
Well,
helped?
I'll be honest with you. I mean, the after the first time, I noticed I felt different, right? So, after that first time, I definitely, I think, felt the result of it. From there, it probably, for the next few weeks, I didn't really, notice much of a change. And after continued, practice, and for me, I mean, it's at least in my head. I mean, I try and get at least a good 15 minutes of no intrusive thoughts, right? Like, I mean, sometimes I'll sit there for, an hour sometimes, just trying to, to keep the thoughts out. I want to have an uninterrupted 15 minutes, at least. And so, that's difficult, right? So it's really hard. And I
Sure.
think it took me several weeks to get to that point. And so, once I got to that point, then I tried to move to 20 minutes. And so I definitely started to notice, the benefits, after that. So after the first time, I really felt immediate, relief, if you will.
Nice.
And so,
So would you say that day to day, I mean, I suffer from it. I'll be the first one to admit it. And I'm sure there's a lot of guys that do too, that they will or won't admit it. But we have these negative, intrusive thoughts that hit us throughout the day, self-deprecating thoughts, and they're really not healthy. Would you
mhm.
say that some of these meditation techniques have stopped the day to day, or at least considerably curbed those thoughts? Or like I'll say I always get the crap, am I really a good pharmacist? Am I really doing my job right? Like I
Yeah,
get those thoughts, and probably maybe even the same, like, am I doing a good job for my clients and helping, practicing law like the way I should? And it's like, yeah, you are.
yep.
Our brain can sometimes be the worst enemy. Would you say that meditation has helped curb those, and overall your thought process is more positive and your outlook towards like your practice and things like that is more positive?
No, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, you kind of hit it on the head. I mean, those intrusive thoughts that kind of run through your head all day unchecked. Meditation has allowed me, to really check those thoughts and kind of keep them keep them at bay. At least, now I'm probably up to about 30 minutes, at a time when I really want to focus now. It's much easier for me to do so and to keep the intrusive thoughts at bay. So from that standpoint, absolutely. It's been able to do that.
Awesome. Would you say that this is kind of like you talking about it? And I deal with this with some of my clients that have kind of early dementia. Is like your brain is a muscle. It's not an actual muscle, but it very much so functions like one. So if you're training your brain and you're doing healthy things for your brain, it's going to just perform a lot better, especially when you really need it to perform. So when you have, I'm going to take a wild guess, like on your end, when you have some prosecutor breathing down your neck or a client's neck or something like that, you're able to process what's going on and not kind of like fly off the handle or
Exactly.
get too emotional about something that you probably shouldn't be, right?
Exactly. Exactly. I mean, that's exactly right. So it really does help regulate, those emotions. So absolutely.
And so, kind of to close out, I would like to know, and our audience would like to know, maybe what are some of your most favorite aspects of your meditation practice? I know you mentioned a little bit about limiting the intrusive thoughts and more patience, but have you seen any additional benefit, or is there a part that you really gravitate towards and are thankful for about, your practice?
I still feel like a novice, and so I'm still learning, and I'm still experiencing new benefits. A general sense of well-being is sort of the obvious answer, to that. the reason I started meditating, I think, was specifically to deal with the anxiety and the and the ADHD, and so so from that standpoint, I really feel like it's really help remedy that issue to to a large extent. Again, I don't know if any of your listeners actually suffer from anxiety. I mean, it can be debilitating, and
For sure.
so to have some freedom from that or some relief from that is huge. And and again, I look forward to all the benefits. I think that'll come with my continued practice. At this point, again, I'm still relatively new. That's where I've seen you know the relief, and that's what I'm most excited about.
For sure. Yeah. I know that like we definitely have listeners reach out and they kind of talk about some of the mental health aspects that they might be going through. Personally, I would always lean more on like to depression. I'm less likely to lean more towards anxiety. And I know that if I am leaning towards anxiety, something's really wrong because I'm like, this isn't
Mm,
normally me. And when I do when I do or have leaned more towards depression in the past, if I guess I kind of had to pick one, it would just be a lot of like intrusive thoughts would kind of be one of the reasons. And then I would be kind of just, I'd find myself laying around too much and
mm.
feeling like I weighed 1,000 pounds. It's like one of these things that's so hard to get out of bed in the morning when a depressive episode is kind of hitting at its full peak. And I think that the meditation really, not to disregard the severity of depression or anxiety, but the meditation practice for me has helped just being able to feel like a little bit of that weight is lifted and that I don't feel completely pressed down and kind of hindered. And I know I'm not. And I think a lot of people with depression, anxiety, or just mental health issues in general, they kind of know it's not, but there's just something so debilitating about your own brain and like how messed up it can be.
Yeah.
And so it's nice to hear that you have taken this practice and it's really helped with mental health. If you care to disclose, I mean, have you noticed like a dosage reduction in any of your medications or anything like that? Like this isn't medical advice, but
No, of
um,
course.
just maybe something for somebody to look forward to. I'm a pharmacist that helps people get off drugs, so um, we kind
That's
of,
awesome.
I'm the one that takes them back. I'm not, part of the dispensing, but where I have noticed is like sometimes you can, it's almost like the carrot, like hanging the carrot. It was like, well,
Sure.
hey, this practice can also help you reduce your dose, which can reduce side effects, and then you might not have to take it. And I'm not saying that, but just in your experience, has this practice helped with your dosing? And have you noticed that maybe you don't need as much medications as you did previously when you didn't have a meditation practice?
Absolutely. When my doctor placed me on, and so now I'm on Prozac. I was placed on, uh, at 20 milligrams. So, pretty normal dose. At that time, my doctor said, well, this is probably kind of low for you, but we can increase it if if you need. And so, when I went back to talk to him, I think it's about a year ago. Oh, no, a little more than a year ago, about 2 years ago. When we discussed how the medication was working, and I thought that I would need to increase it, but we actually discussed the meditation and the exercise and the other things, and so he just decided no, we're not going to increase it. We're going to maintain. And so while I haven't reduced my dosage, I've been able to maintain the dosage, and so I sort of count that as in some ways a victory.
Yeah,
It,
that's a pretty close to starter dose. I'd have to brush up on my Prozac, but that's pretty close to starter dose and pretty low, like a low dose of that
mhm,
medication. So generally, when you go to the doctor, they keep upping it. It's
upping it.
just kind of one of those things. So I would say that if you're able to maintain and use those, tools to maintain a good medication dose and it's working for you, I mean, I think that's awesome. And I just said a minute ago, I try to help people get off medications, but also I am a firm believer that medications are a great tool as
Mhm.
well. And we're lucky that we have like Western medicine because it's very advanced. We have new advances coming out all the time, but at the same time, it's not the solution. It's
Yeah,
more of a tool to help you get to the solution, and we can pull different tools from different areas to help get to whatever the desired effect is. And it seems like that's kind of what you've got going on, is a little bit of medications, some meditation, and
exactly.
an overall sense of well-being. You're going to the gym, and I think all those things together are what really help people find the solution, rather than just it's very easy to go to the doctor and get them to prescribe you something. So
Yeah.
and that's awesome that your doctor worked with you on that too.
Now that's exactly it.
Well, Brian, I definitely appreciate you coming on, discussing your meditation practice and some mental health. I think it's important for guys to know that it's not just them. Guys are not, nobody's in isolation dealing with these things. It could be your friendly neighborhood attorney down the street. But I'm glad to see that you're working through it and that it's provided some benefit. And hopefully this podcast can kind of show some of our listeners who are thinking about a meditation practice, or not even aware of how it can benefit them, can really impact your day-to-day life like really well. So
No,
thanks for
absolutely.
coming on. And then last part, what kind of law do you practice?
So I practice criminal defense and personal injury.
All right. And then if any of our listeners have,
Any,
want to call you, is there a
any
contact
issues
or
with those?
with those type of things?
Yeah, my number is 813-226-8522. I
813
do free consultations.
and free consults, guys. So
Free
pretty
consults.
sweet.
Yeah. And hey, Patrick, thank you so much. And yeah, I think that this is a very important topic, and especially for men. And I really do like the fact that you're targeting men, because we tend to not take things like this seriously. And
For
so
sure.
I think it's very important. And so I'm really glad that you're doing this.
For
So
sure. And
it's
you're a
all the
family
best in the world
man.
to you. Yeah,
Thank you. You're a family man, and it's easy to kind of dismiss maybe yourself. You're working, so you got to feed your family, right? And that's
yeah,
what's really important for men. And I think that's something that we pride ourselves on the show, is like men. I think a lot of men want to be caregivers, providers, and the typical roles. And I think sometimes the residuals do get in the way, and we have just being guys, we have a way of kind of shoveling all that stuff to the back burner. And the problem is, when you keep shoveling it, it keeps piling up. And so we're trying to find good, quality solutions so that you don't have to shovel so much to the back. You can address your health and mental health, but also still be able to provide and take care of your family. And I think that's what most guys' goals are. And so giving them the tools to find solutions for that, that's what we're all about.
absolutely. That's awesome.
All right, Bryant. Well, thanks so much. And our community appreciates you for sharing. Talk soon.
All right, thank you.